So this is Docuware. Docuware is a browser-based solution. It is available in both on-premise and cloud-based versions. And the biggest differentiator of Docuware is the user-friendliness of our product. It has been designed to be very intuitive, easy to navigate without any type of formal user training. So you'll see we have two screens in a single display. We have our left side, which is our document workspace, and our right side, which is our document viewer. The viewer is how you review documents that are coming into the system. We're going to go back to our workspace, and you can see we have several navigation tabs that we can complete various functions with. We're going to start with document trays. So document trays are no more than a temporary holding area for documents that are coming into the system. And we have several different ways that we can bring documents into your tray. We can connect to a dedicated scanner. So if you're scanning documents in, we can have those images pull up directly into your document tray. You can also import right from your desktop and open it in your tray that way. We have integrations with Outlook. So we have the ability right from Outlook just to simply right-click the document or the attachment and store it in the appropriate document tray. Additionally, we can do a drag and drop. See them coming in. We can also monitor an email address. So if you're getting invoices, for example, to a specific email address, we can monitor that and have those attachments and the body of the email come into Docuware. We can monitor a folder. So if you have documents coming in to a specific network folder, we can monitor that and sweep them into your tray as well. So now that we have our documents in our tray, we're going to take a look at an invoice from US Steel. I pull it up into my viewer, and we talked about some of the challenges that you mentioned on the survey and the manual data entry piece of it. So this next step is really where Docuware can apply a lot of the automation for your day-to-day process. I'm going to go ahead and hit store, and you can see automatically all the information in these different data fields have populated in each field. And this is what we call intelligent indexing, which uses artificial intelligence to learn where all of the important pieces of information that I have selected on this document are located on this specific invoice. So as I go line by line, I can see that all this information is captured. It actually highlights where on the document that information is. We also have color-coded indicators next to each line. So since it's green, it's a system telling us that there's high confidence that the information is both complete and accurate. And let's say for whatever reason, the total was not captured. We can simply hover over the field and do what we call one-click indexing, and it'll populate that field for me. So you can see how quickly we were able to capture all this information without having to type in anything. You can only imagine, this is one invoice, you can only imagine the time savings if you're processing hundreds or even thousands of invoices a month. So we got all the information captured. I'm going to go ahead and hit store, and that'll actually kick off the next step in the workflow. Now I'm going to show you some of the search capabilities. So search is one of the biggest benefits of having a content management system. You have different searches that are important to your specific user. Since I'm in accounting, I want to be able to have an easy invoice search. So these are all the different fields that I can use to search to find my document quickly. So invoice number or PO number could be common ones, company name, but let's say for some reason I can't remember who the company was or when the invoice came in. We have the ability with Docuware to make all of your documents fully text searchable, which allows you to search any kind of keyword that could be included in that specific document. So I can't really remember the invoice. I know we purchased a bolt on this invoice. I'm just going to simply type in the word bolt and search, and it's going to show me the documents associated that have the word bolt in it. I double click, it'll even show me where on the document that word is located. So now that I've shown you how to bring documents into your tray, how to do intelligent indexing, and how to quickly and easily search within Docuware, I'm going to pass it off to Bob to show us some use case examples.
All right, thank you, Matt. Excellent. Well, really excited to be here today, and even more excited to show off the Docuware's capability here to integrate with SAP. And I really don't want to spend too much time really talking about the integration, because up next we're going to get to actually showing an S/4HANA demo and show how these two systems really do complement each other so well. But I do need to at least go through some of the use cases, because like Docuware, this integration is really just a tool set, and we can configure it in a number of ways to meet whatever your specific business needs are. It's not just configured for the way that we are going to show today. So I separated these out into 3 different categories to really go through the use cases that we see. The first one being documents that are generated out of SAP. So these are your purchase orders or sales orders, acknowledgements, bill latings, those kind of documents. We are using Docuware as the repository or the archive. And so not only can this be a more cost-effective way to store your documents, but as Matt showed, we can use Docuware's document management features to do things like retention policies. There's more granular user permissions. You have the automated routing and approvals, and so on. And perhaps the biggest benefit is you don't lose any functionality that you already have today, meaning I can still access those documents through the attachment lists in SAP, but I can now allow authorized users access to those same documents outside of SAP, meaning I don't need to have an SAP license to view those documents anymore. The second area, kind of the second category, are we bring documents into SAP, or they need to be stored in SAP. And once again, we're going to use Docuware as the repository, and in this case, really leverage those capture capabilities. So whether we're pulling from an email like Matt showed, or a scanner, or a monitored folder, maybe even a mobile app for capturing, we want to bring those into Docuware and have intelligent indexing go and pull as much data as we can off those documents to eliminate that manual data entry. And so once we do that, this allows us to create those links to the records or to the business objects in SAP by PO number or sales order number, whatever it might be. And we can actually link to multiple objects in SAP, but yet still have that one document sitting in Docuware. And then even though we brought the documents into Docuware, you can still access them the same way you're used to through the attachment list in SAP, and then obviously still get access to them outside of SAP directly through Docuware. The third area, and it really kind of breaks down into 2, is dealing with this master data, or the fact that SAP is your source of record. So we want to make sure that vendor information, GL codes, purchase order numbers, all that data is in sync between SAP and Docuware. So if I'm in Docuware, I can only select data that's relevant to SAP. If I have a known piece of information, a sales order number, I can then backfill information from SAP for better searching. And then we're going to go through an AP example today. And on that AP invoice, if we can bring that document in, use the OCR intelligent indexing to eliminate the manual data entry, it then allows us to do all these validations against purchase orders and pricing and whatnot, and then ultimately park or post that invoice into SAP without someone having to key it in. Like I said, this is one of the examples we're going to go through today. We are going to use S/4HANA as the example for the demo, but please do keep in mind that we can do the integration with many different flavors of SAP. So this is the end of the slide, so probably a good time to get into the fun stuff. So Mike, if you're ready to go, we'll go ahead and pass the presentation over to you. And I guess, quite honestly, if you're not ready, it's coming anyway. So Mike, go ahead and take it away.
Thanks, Bob. Okay, so what we're going to start with here is we're going to be creating a purchase order in SAP, like you would normally do, and this purchase order has an output of creating a PDF once it's created. And you might have a lot of different outputs in SAP. It's a very simple change to switch it from printing or emailing to then also archiving into Docuware. So this is a standard archive link interface that we use for the integration, so the documents just kind of go right across into Docuware. So what we have here is we're doing a purchase order for our EV part supplier. We're going to put some other reference information on this purchase order, and you'll see how this information also then flows over to Docuware. So if we have a customer that calls us and we're in Docuware, we can just search by those type of that criteria to pull up that document if we don't have the purchase order number. So we'll just fill in some of these fields here as references. And then we'll create our purchase order. So we're going to create 3 different lines on our purchase order. Some different quantities here. Okay. Okay, now that our purchase order is filled in, we're going to save that purchase order, which creates it, and then that document will be generated in the background and then sent over to SAP. We can see that our purchase order number was created, 1314 here in the bottom left. So now that if we go to Docuware and do a search, we can see if I click on that record, the purchase order document was created, and then also a lot of the index information or the metadata about that purchase order from SAP was transferred over to Docuware. So we can see the PO number, the date, vendor name, vendor number from SAP, which company it goes to, and even some of those internal reference numbers that we had that we searched for that we added to that purchase order before. So not only is it in Docuware where we can search and find it there, but now in SAP, if we go look up that purchase order, and go to our attachment list, we can see that purchase order document. By double clicking on that, sorry, I was a little fast there. By double clicking on that item in the purchase in the attachment list, it automatically opened up the Docuware viewer right to this document. So here you can see, I mean, it's a very simple demo of how that works, but if you have an output in SAP, it's very easy to have it then archive that document over into SAP. So not only just purchase order documents, but things like sales orders, deliveries, AR invoices, when those get generated in SAP, they can automatically be here. And we've seen that save quite a bit of either cost or time when people need to go retrieve those documents. Okay, so our next thing that we're going to focus on is documents that are external to SAP and how those documents then get linked back to a transaction in SAP. So our first item is going to be an email we received from our supplier about the terms of this purchase order that they would like us to abide by. So using the Connect to Outlook interface that Matt showed earlier, we brought that into this document tray of purchase order documentation. And here we can see when we go to store this document that it automatically picked up the purchase order number right here. If we wanted to,
that's that intelligent indexing piece. That's that OCR. That's the learning piece for intelligent indexing.
Yep. And here you can see what we did is that since that data came over from SAP, we could even see things like, okay, what is the external PO number? So if we just had that, we could store by that number as well, and then the system would automatically link it up. So here, this is showing more of a manual process of doing it, but we can do all these linking of documents automatically behind the scenes if there is one of those key pieces of information on it. So when we store this document, we're only storing it by the purchase order number. Store that there. And we can do our search. it goes. So what it did, it went out to SAP and grabbed that information related to that purchase order. So we can see the PO number, so the vendor name, vendor number, company code, and all those reference numbers have been put on this terms document. So now if we go back over to SAP, so behind the scenes, what's going to happen now is that document, that email is now going to be linked to this purchase order. So it doesn't matter which system I'm in, if I'm in that purchase order and I want to see some of that related information, it would be on this attachment list. Here we go. So we have both the purchase order and that email. Clicking on that email, again, pulls up Docuware and shows that email that we attached. So one thing nice here, we're using the Docuware viewer. So this is an email, and with SAP, it's not good at displaying all the different type of documents we might want to link to a record in SAP. So with the benefit of the Docuware viewer, it can show hundreds of different file formats very easily in a browser. The user doesn't have to have all these different softwares loaded up for them to view these documents. It easily displays them and renders them in the Docuware viewer.
And Mike, I just want to just pause for a second there. I mean, I didn't see you type anything when you stored this document. So for those that might be storing these correspondence or this email that's referenced to a purchase order in this case, or to a sales order, it's that capture piece with Docuware where you can have that one key piece of information. You can teach it, you can use the intelligent indexing and then have that automatically linked versus if you have to save the email or save the attachment, go into SAP, find the record type, go to the attachments, all those different steps you go through. With the integration here, you can utilize those capture tools with Docuware, and then with the integration, do that linking for you automatically.
Yep. I mean, we've also used it for, let's say you get a bunch of EDI invoices that are automatically executed in your SAP system, but then the vendor then sends those, the hard copies or the electronic copies of those PDFs of those invoices to you at a later date. And we can read those all in, link them all back to the invoice behind the scenes, and backfill the index data. So that way, if someone's ever looking up that EDI invoice in SAP and they actually want to see the human readable format document of that, again, just go to the attachment list. We linked it automatically based on those keywords, those key fields that we found behind the scenes with no work by the end user to show that document. So yeah, there's a lot of possibilities there.
Excellent.
Awesome. So another way of linking external documents is called barcoding. This is a SAP function where we do the linking kind of happens more on the SAP side. And the scenario we're going to have here today is when we're receiving goods, we have that goods receipt or receiver where we're marking down, okay, we got this item and we got 5 of these and 10 of those. And then we're going to put that document, we're going to execute that document in SAP by doing a goods receipt there. And how do we link that goods receipt document to that transaction? So the way we're going to do it here today is we're going to get those goods in on the floor. We're going to scan that packing slip, goods receipt, into Docuware, and in Docuware we have a list that we work off of where we validate the goods and then do the transaction in SAP at the same time. So your organization might do it differently, and we can talk about all those different ways, but this method can support a variety of processes of how you do that, of receiving goods. Who's the one who's entering, who's the one who's signing things in. This can handle all those different scenarios. So what we have here is a list in Docuware on our dashboard here of packing slips that we need to then enter into SAP. So these are, we need to do a goods receipt here. So we're going to scan one in here, kind of simulate that in the back end. So we're going to bring that document in. So that document comes in, and then it'll show up automatically on our list for processing. And there it is. So we can see our document. We would then go and review what has been received for that purchase order. So I'm just going to put my initials. Yep. So the first line we received the entire line for that first item. For the second item, we only received half a shipment, and then for the last one we received 0. So we're just initialing that. Yep, that's what we got, and we're going to sign and date that on our document. And next we're going to now enter this into SAP. So we want to copy this barcode value because this is how we're going to link this document into SAP when we do that transaction. Okay, so here's the screen in SAP where we receive goods. We have our purchase order number. Let's go full screen here. So for the first item, we received all 10 in. The second item, we only received 4. And the last item, we received 0. So with the barcoding process, now when I post this transaction, it is then going to pop up and say, okay, well, which document in Docuware did you use for this transaction? So what I'm going to do here is just so you can kind of see it. So once we post this, this pending packing slip here will automatically come off the list. So I'll hit post. SAP is going to come up and say, okay, what's the value you used? So here's that barcode value that we used that was on that document. I'm gonna hit OK here. And then you can see how that document just came off the list automatically. So now, if we want to display that document, let's go here. I want to display the document we just created. Okay, so here's that goods receipt we just did in SAP, and it has its own attachment list. If you click on that there, we can see our goods receipt. So if anybody else came into this receiving document, they would see this here. If they wanted to validate, what was entered versus what was on the document, they could come here and just click on that document, on that link. It would show them the document, and then also show them, the different annotations. Okay, who signed off on this and when did they do it? And here's where we talked about how the same document can be linked to multiple records in SAP. So not only did we link this to the receiving document, but we can also link this to the purchase order. So I'm gonna go back to my purchase order, go back to my attachment list, and we see all 3 items now: the purchase order, the email with the terms, and the goods receipt. Again, clicking on that opens up that same document. Now, if I go back to Docuware and do a search, you can see that packing list came in and all the information backfilled into it. Okay. Anything you want to add, Bob, before we move over to the best part of the show?
No, I'm just excited to get to the good stuff. No, I did a nice job showing everything. I mean, I think it's a great explanation for the way we can link to multiple objects. I just keep coming back to the ease of getting these documents in and linked to wherever you need them in SAP. And every company is a little bit different. So if you need a document linked to a specific transaction, we just need to work with you on where you need that to be. So let's put it in a place that allows you to get access to that information as quickly as possible, so you don't have to go hunt and peck and find it. And then once again, because it's in Docuware, you don't have to be in SAP to find this. You can give access to these documents to anybody with just a Docuware license without needing that SAP license.
Okay, let me just write that down. So your favorite part is paying bills. So I'm just going to write that.
Yes, yes, exactly, yes. And for those following along, you probably guessed that we're going to be going through the AP side. We're going to do some validation against what was received in our goods receipt to make sure it matches the PO, which I'm sure is a process that most people on here are very familiar with. So get your popcorn, I'm ready.
Okay. Okay, so now we have a tray for our PO invoices. I again brought that in through the drag and drop method for this one. And then when we go to store this document, we can see, similar to Matt's example, where it pull all that information off the document. So if I hover over a piece of information, you can see where it came from. But it also pulled information that's not on the document. So it learned that this document goes to this vendor number in SAP. So that's another really key advantage where we can, as the intelligent indexing learns, it learns, okay, this one goes to that name and this vendor number in SAP. So this list comes right from SAP. So when we store this document is gonna then, make sure there's no other, it's gonna do a duplicate check, but then go through and then go to SAP and then find all the PO line items for this purchase order. So I'm gonna hit store here, and we'll talk about that here in just a second here. So I'm gonna hit store. And then I'm gonna show you our dashboard so we can kind of explain the process of how it kind of works its way down the dashboard here. So it comes in, it does a few checks to make sure it's not a duplicate. And right now it's getting our open PO line item. So it's going out to that purchase order, seeing all the different lines on the purchase order, what has been received, what has already been invoiced, and then does a calculation to see, okay, does the invoice amount match the open PO amount on the purchase order, and then brings that information to you, so then you can decide, do we pay this invoice, do we negotiate, is there, what do we do with it? If you get comfortable with the system, you can have it automatically post if you'd like and go straight through, but as you learn, we can adapt this to your specific needs. So it gets those open purchase order items, and then it kind of drops it into our review tab here. You can also see we have other things for expense invoices, or so non-PO line items. So we do have a demo for that as well, but we're not showing that here. Where it goes out for approval, you can then see who has it and when they have it. If it's been rejected, why, and things like that. But right now we're focusing on our purchase order invoice process. So it just moved from our doing our calculation, and it went into our AP review step here. So I'm going to click on my task. So now I have a workflow task. So this is something we haven't really seen before yet. So we have one item in our task list, and it kind of tells us, we double click on that, it shows us the document in the right. And it shows us our workflow task here on the left. So you can see when you double click on it, it gives us this form and gives us a little bit of information about the invoice. There's other decisions we can make here on the left, whether we want to, do the calculation for the PO items again. Let's say we just received something in, the invoice came in before we did the receiving, we could go and refresh those results. If we wanted to send it to purchasing with a comment, we could say, hey, there's, can you check the pricing on this one, or what happened to line 3? We could send that over to them. They could they would own that invoice and they could send it back to us, and we could reassign it to a different AP specialist. If we didn't want it, we could reject it. So we have a whole bunch of different options that we can customize to your needs. But for today, we're going to focus on our send to SAP option. So here we can see that the amounts are different, and it's because of this freight charge that we have here on the right. So again, we can scroll down. We can see our open PO line items right here. So our different line 1 and line 2. Right now we have a quantity of 10 and a quantity of 4 open. We can also look and see all purchase order lines, so that we can see what's the complete history of that purchase order in one quick view here, right in Docuware. So we don't need to go flip it back and forth between our different screens. We can get a quick glimpse of what's going on with the purchase order. So here you can see all 3 line items. We can see our quantity was 8, but we only received 4. And then that 3rd line item, we can see that we had 4, but we didn't receive any. And then for all of these, we haven't invoiced anything yet. We also allow, if you wanted to put that $80 in a GL account, so that GL account information would come from SAP. All the different accounts would be loaded there to pick from if needed. Also in Docuware, similar to that attachment list that we've seen in SAP, we have a related tab here where we can then say, okay, show me all the documents related to this purchase order. So I can go back and see the original purchase order document, show me the goods receipt, show me the terms. If I click on that, it goes and shows me all the documents that share that purchase order number. Here we can see the purchase order, the terms, the packing list, and here's the invoice that we're working on today. So you could imagine if this was an invoice that had multiple receiving, multiple invoicing, we could see that whole history right here. Awesome. Okay, so in order for this to balance, we're going to take this $80. Oops, let's click on the document here. And using that one-click indexing that Matt kind of referred to before, we're going to put that $80 into our unplanned delivery costs. If I just click on that value, it's going to fill it in there for me, that $80. So now our transaction is going to balance, and we can post it to SAP. So we hit post, and then hit confirm. So now it's going to remove out of that AP review step and then put it into our queue for posting over to SAP.
And Mike, with those lists you have up there, these are the ones that I would say we most commonly use as part of this process. But depending on your specific needs, this dashboard, this list of kind of real time what's going on, can be updated, changed, created to whatever your specific need is. But it's nice that you can see it kind of walk through. You see the red versus the yellow, so you know which ones are being moved versus which ones are sitting out there waiting for some action to be taken on.
Yep.
And it's always fun going through the process. Oh, see, perfect timing.
Yeah.
Going through the process, yeah, on the webinar when it goes through in a second seems like an hour. So fantastic.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. So again, that invoice posted over. We have the SAP Posting key if we wanted to look up that document. So we'll do that now. Okay, so here's that invoice that we posted with the different line items of our quantities, 10 and 4. Payment amount is $1,400. In our details here, we can see that $80 of that unplanned delivery cost that we mapped over. And then if we go to that attachment list, We can see our invoice. Again, double clicking on that. Shows the invoice in Docuware. But then also, again, if we go back to our attachment list for that purchase order, we see all 4 documents, all linked to that PO. So it doesn't matter which transaction we're in, we can get to the documents that we want to see. Okay.
I think that's what we have for today. I think just to recap a little bit of that last piece there, I think that's why I like the invoice process and showing it is you very easily get those four different documents, related to that one object. And if you think about your processes today, they came in via email, they were generated out of SAP, they came in through the ship. There's multiple ways you're getting these documents, and you can use the one tool set to bring all those into one storage location. There's one copy of that image that allows you to create those references within SAP. So people don't need to go once again and search through multiple areas to find the documents they're looking for. Present it to them in one screen, in one place, to save them that time. I think before I hand it back over to Matt, I do want to say the demo today was run live. So big shout out, Mike, for getting through things in demos. Once again, seconds seem like minutes, but this was run directly from a Docuware cloud environment in real time with a live SAP environment. So from a performance standpoint, it's the real deal, which I think is fantastic. And once again, nice work, Mike.